Welcome back to the AI-Native Telco Summit, part of our DSP Leaders coverage. And time now for our live Q&A show. I'm Guy Daniels, and this is the second of two Q&A shows. It's your final chance to ask questions on the application of AI within telecoms networks. Now, earlier today, we held a panel discussion that looked at using AIOps for operational efficiencies. We have already received a lot of questions from you, but if you haven't yet sent one in, then please do so now using the Q&A form on the website. Well, let's now meet our guests who are going to help answer your questions. And joining us live on the program today are Beth Cohen, SDN Product Strategies at Verizon, Jason Hogg, GM Azure for Operators at Microsoft, Mark Gilmore, CTO for ConnectiviTree Europe, and Roman Ferrando, Principal Analyst AI with Appledore Research. Hello everyone, it's good to see you all. Well, first question I have for you, use cases. We've had dozens of questions about them, so let me start off by asking, what are the AI use cases for telcos? The quick wins and perhaps new ones that are enabled by AI. Mark, are you able to start us off with thoughts on use cases?
Yeah, happy to, Guy. With going first, that means I can go for the low-hanging fruit option, and actually one that really gives some really powerful and positive results, and that's really in the service assurance space. The idea of an anomaly detection and then anomaly correlation. That's a fantastic use case. One that is getting heavy adoption quite quickly as well, just because it brings really significant benefits very quickly. So that's the one that I would go for. It's kind of the low-hanging fruit, probably the easiest answer on that one in terms of a nice clear-cut use case.
Well, it's a good one, Mark. It's an important one as well. So thanks very much for raising that. But I'm sure we've got some more use cases that our panelists could contribute. Anybody else got any take on use cases? Anyone want to jump in on this one on what use cases? Because if not, we'll move on to our next question. Right. Okay. Well, Roman, let's come down to you first.
Yeah. Thank you. I think anomaly detection is a great use case. It's actually a capability we can apply to different places in the network and enable a number of potential use cases. There are a few more than that, and actually a few more that gets enabled because we have anomaly detection in place. When we're talking about root cause analysis, for instance, or being able to identify problems in early stages, it all relates to anomaly detection. And it's definitely one of the use cases or capabilities that it brings more value and quicker to operators. So completely agree with the question. So probably I will add more additional use cases that gets enabled because we have anomaly detection in place.
Yeah, thanks so much, Roman. And Beth, you want to come in with some thoughts on use cases?
Yes. So I would say the most advanced use cases are ones that are based on natural language processing. And natural language processing is a pretty advanced AI technique that's been around for at least 10 or 15 years. And so we've been applying it to sentiment analysis, looking at, the tickets and taking using sentiment analysis to determine, is the customer just, looking for information, or are they angry, or, based on, what types of, how they phrase the inquiries. So that's actually a really interesting use case. And it's based on some pretty tried and true AI that's already out there. So that's another one that we're using.
Great. Thanks very much, Beth. And Jason, let's come across and hear from you.
No problems. And, there's a very long list of use cases that can be solved, but I want to sort of just play off what Beth was just saying. I think NLP is a super area, and one of the areas that we're actually seeing it start to get useful is for actually data engineering teams, especially as they're embracing new technologies where there may be a new query language or new sort of syntax that they have to learn. So within Power BI, for example, you can now start to actually ask our Copilot for help answering a specific question in plain English. It will then generate the Custo query for you, the KQL query, and you can see the results without having to be a data engineering expert, which is super helpful. The other thing that I think is super interesting with that aspect of NLP is it also means you don't necessarily have to know what data is available in your organization. The model itself has a pretty good understanding of the different data sets, the structure of the data sets, the attributes on the data sets, meaning it can actually generate a query that you may not be able to actually generate yourself. So another good use case.
Great, thanks very much, Jason. And we just heard a few minutes ago on our interview actually with Orange Business about the use of Copilot. That was extremely interesting. Mark, do you want to head back over to you for some extra comments on the use cases?
Yeah, I think I wanted to give others the opportunity to add some further in, and I really like that. They're just mentioning that about the data engineering piece, and I see there's a real opportunity there for AI techniques to be used to enhance software development, really make it easier for us in the operator space and domain to actually build better software, build better operational tools to support our operations aspirations, but also the customer experience and customer journey piece. So I see that's a really, really useful one. And then the analytics side of that, pulling that data out of the network, using it then for customer benefit, for and then also for operational benefit, utilization reviews, that sort of thing. There really starts to be a lot of potential opportunities to really delve into on that. So yeah, it's started off with an easy one and kind of low hanging fruit, but we're really only at the opening up of those potential options, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark, and thanks everyone for those examples. And let's turn this question around to our audience, because our audience have been asking all of you to come up with use cases. We should do the same to them. So if you've got any use cases you haven't heard, why don't you just pop them on the question box and send them in to us, because we'd love to see them. Right, moving on, I'm combining some similar questions here. AI has been applied to telco solutions for more than a decade, but what are CSPs going to do differently this time? And also, how is generative AI, for example, changing the approach that telcos will take? Jason, let's come across first to you. And I think we also want to hear from Roman on this one. So Jason first.
Thank you. I think one of the first observations for how I've seen AI applied, both the actual development and training of the models and the deployment of them, is that they're typically being implemented on siloed data sets. And so I think some progress has been made, some good insights and sort of behaviors are actually being automated as a result of that. But I think the really big change that we're seeing is a very large interest now in how cloud computing like the Azure platform can actually help, not just for the training of the models, but also as a solution to the actual data silo problem. By getting all of the data into a common location, it then puts you into a position where you can start to actually think about correlation across data sets, which then forces the actual discussion about how do you actually architect your data sets for composability, independent lifecycle management, some of those sorts of factors. So I think the public cloud and then sort of thinking about the structure of the data is sort of really, really important. That then allows sort of the big data sort of techniques to be used as underlying infrastructure and sort of enable insights on much, much larger sets of data than would probably be possible in the past. And then I think the biggest change that we're sort of now starting to see is AI being accessible to everybody. In the past, it was really data engineers, data scientists, skilled developers that could start to apply the AI on sort of data. Now, when you start to look at sort of open AI and generative sort of AI models, we're actually enabling everybody, operations teams, customer support teams, and so forth, to have access to the data. And that's the Azure Operator Insights product that just launched recently, and its Copilot sort of feature is designed to actually allow folks that may not have had access to AI in the past to start applying it on data sets that they're actually trying to actually get insights from.
That's interesting, Jason. It's kind of democratizing the data access throughout the telco organization. Roman, what are you seeing that CSPs will do differently with AI this time around?
First of all, I'd like to say that this is a very, very good question, very legitimate question. The first thing that I'd like to say is the process of extracting knowledge from data and apply that knowledge to a situation where it is relevant is disruptive. It's not easy. It takes time to learn. And not only from the technical angle, but also as an organization. I think it's taking us some time to reach the point in which we can assess better use cases. We were talking about use cases. There are many use cases. We can talk about optimization. We can talk about correlation of different alarms. I think it was already mentioned. But now we have a better assessment framework, if you want to call it that way. We have more experience. And remember, this technology is disruptive. It's not similar to anything that we did before in this industry. The second thing that I'd like to highlight is the tools and the technology angle. So now we have frameworks that are able to train more accurate, more powerful models with just a few lines of code. And that is very important. So when we started 15 years back, we nearly start from scratch every time. It was a very tedious process. All the process of normalizing the data, doing the cross-validation of models, it was very tedious. So now we have much more mature level of automation, and I will call it industrialization, if you want to call it that way. So it's getting more mature. And the third angle possible is, okay, so now we are considering deeper the business aspects of the use case. So we evaluate better if actually makes sense to put an AI algorithm to work to solve a problem that is not really a relevant problem, or even AI can do absolutely nothing to solve it. So I think now we are much mature, we have more experience, and we have much better tools that enable us to generate outcome faster, quicker, and better. So that's what I see different now.
Yeah, we're in a very different place. Thanks very much. And Beth, let's come across to you.
Yeah, I want to touch on, Jason mentioned that the large data set. I think that's hugely important. I always use the example of people are trying to always solve big data problems with elegant solutions. But in the end of the day, it's all about the giant set of data that you need to plow through. And I think we're just getting better at it, better at the processing of the massive amounts of data that's needed to really highlight the gems that AI can really pop out for us. And I'll use two examples. One is speech recognition, which people spent about 10 or 15 years trying to use neural networks to do it. At the end of the day, the brute force method was actually the way that it got solved, which is you just threw massive amounts of speech data at the systems, and you ran lots and lots and lots of computing to train the systems. So I see that happening today in network intelligence, natural language processing, translation, all sorts of operational anomaly detection, security, looking for security aspects, security threats, looking for pattern matching. Just need gigantic sets of data to achieve all of this.
Great, thanks very much, Beth. The situation's changed. We're better at it as well. Mark, let's come across to you.
A slightly maybe contrarian view is yes, I agree with everything that has been said in terms of we can do it better and things like that. I think the thing we have to worry about, and we kind of chatted a little bit about this just before we came on air, was that we have to be careful not to use AI where we don't need to use AI, and I think that's a trap we got to stop ourselves from falling into as an industry. Because then we start hitting upon areas where we're also trying to innovate and develop in. And for example, using intense amounts of compute where compute is not really needed drives up power consumption and hits out our energy efficiency targets that we're trying to hit on the other side. But actually using the techniques to be more efficient in how we use our network, our operations, etc., etc. That's where. So we've got to be probably more selective and not get caught up in yes, I'm going to use AI because it's a buzzword to solve every single problem that I as a telco face. So I think there's a cautionary note in there that we have to catch with any technology advance, any kind of wave that we find ourselves on.
Yeah, it's a good cautionary note you made there, Mark. And Roman, I'm sure would like to pick up on this.
Yeah, absolutely agree. One of the things that we learn, we still have to learn a lot, is to do that question and have a genuine answer for that. AI is super powerful. It's a big umbrella, by the way. There are many concepts under the AI concept, but it's not for everything and anything. And the first question we have to be able to answer is AI going to help me to solve this particular problem at hand or not? It makes no sense to, as it was said, spend all that amount of time, energy, and resources in something that makes no sense from the very beginning. So when I was saying we're in a better position now, we're in a better position, for instance, to evaluate those situations and avoid them. Still, we have a lot of things to do on that because we are not 100% assessing yet. We're far from that. But I see some advances. I completely agree with the necessity of have a clear understanding of what AI can do and cannot do. That is the first step. I think we are making progress on that side, but definitely there's room for improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks very much, everybody, for those answers. I want to move along to our next question now. It's a slightly long one, so let me read it out in full. And the question is, there is not much adoption of AI in real networks. It is far from the AI native vision that achieves full automation and intelligence across the whole network. However, both 3GPP and Open Alliance are starting to address this. So how do you see the standards developing, and what might be the new standards related challenges ahead? And Beth, I wonder if we could come to you for your thoughts first.
Sure. I am actually serving on a task force with the Linux Foundation Networking Group on exactly this topic. And, yes, there's a lot of interest in our member companies in exploring AI network intelligence as well as operational AI. The biggest roadblock that we're seeing, setting aside the use cases, which I think are becoming a little more clear, is the lack of a standardized data set in which to test the algorithms. If you don't have a standard definition of jitter, for example, and even within companies, we're seeing that the definition is not necessarily even clear within any of the telcos, and you don't have a standard across the industry. It's very hard to test that what you're generating is actually accurate, usable, and can solves the business problem. So I would say that's probably one of the major issues. Also, a lot of the work up until quite recently was being done in different areas outside of the telco space. And what was done in the telco space was quite narrow. And I think it's time to really broaden it out. And, I think that the open source community and the standards bodies can really help in this. Because we need some way of speaking the same language across the vendors and across the telcos, these ISPs, the CSPs, as well as the vendors that support this ecosystem.
Yeah, it looks like you've got your work cut out there, but we have huge respect for everyone working on standards and specifications. It's so important. Mark, let's come across to you for your thoughts.
I'm generally, I think, and probably because of my cellular history and background, I'm an advocate of standards and standards bodies. I see the benefit, particularly where you try and create an ecosystem and you're trying to create interoperability between operators for a global standard, for global implementations, for ease of use for the end customer, etc. And so there is a place for sure, particularly we're trying to get to scale of operations for vendors, for suppliers into the operator space. But I also think that the downside of that is that it becomes potentially a slow-moving development and innovation engine, and well, that can't exist within this AI space. Just because we've seen the rapid adoption, the rapid acceleration of GenAI, for example, in the last 12 months, if we were waiting for that to be standardized, we wouldn't see it for another 2-3 years, and something that would be a lot less capable than what we've got today. So there is particularly a place for the standards bodies when it comes to interoperability, when it comes to global integration, I suppose. But we can't let it stand in the way of innovation and development, and particularly in-house and capabilities. Today's panel, we were focusing on AIOps. So from an operations point of view and expanding and improving processes there, I'm not sure that particularly needs a global standards body to do that. I think the open source community plays a huge role, though, in developing things quickly in a more agile way and getting those release cycles out. And I think we've seen an evolution of the standards bodies from in that way as well. So I don't know, am I sitting on the fence a bit? Maybe, but I am an advocate because I can see where the end benefit comes to the end user.
Well, there's nothing wrong with sitting on the fence, Mark, and it's a very valid point about this relationship between standards and speed and agility, and also, we mustn't forget there's also specifications which aren't necessarily standards. But anyway, we must move on. I did want to get some comments in, and I think Jason, did you want to comment on this standard specification question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to the actual complexity of the data that's been analyzed. I think there's really good examples in BSS systems, customer support systems, where sentiment analysis can be applied because the data itself is reasonably straightforward. When you start to look at core networks, I think one of the largest inhibitors for telcos in terms of AI adoption is the lack of standards on those core data sets and the complexity and the scale at which that data is sort of emitted. That's making it hard for an ecosystem of AI providers to exist, because if every single operator has to have the model customized and retrained or additional sort of training occurring in order for the model to be useful, it's just really slowing down the ability to actually have large scale sort of deployment inside some of the scenarios within sort of core networks. Now, I'm sort of excited. I believe NWDAV, I ran some of the more sort of forward-looking standards, 5G, ESA sort of technology stack, start to actually understand the importance of defining use cases and standard sort of telemetry associated with those use cases that lead me to believe that will then be the basis for sort of libraries of AI models that can then be applied more generically, which will then sort of enable an ecosystem of sort of SIs, GSIs, and so forth to actually deliver models in a sort of scalable and sort of more cost-efficient manner than is possible right now.
Yeah, well, thanks very much, Jason, for that. And Roman, let's come across to you to finish off the answers to this question.
Yeah, I will be quick with this one. to achieve the maximum value from AI, we need multi-vendor compatibility. Without the standards, we're not going to make it. So we need them. We need the standards. And it was mentioned 3GPP, Linux Foundation, TMF is making a great job on that side. But it's also true, we cannot afford the base that we have so far, the standards. We all know all the factors involved in the standard process. Creation is not an easy process for many things. But we need to speed up because we need this common playground in which we all can understand each other. That's going to help us as industry. So I completely agree with Mark. We need them, but we cannot afford this speed. We had to do it quicker and faster.
Great. Clear comments from everyone there. Thanks very much indeed. Well, let's pause for just a moment because we do want to check our audience poll for the AI-Native Telco Summit. The question we are asking you this week is, how can telcos best leverage AI innovation to improve operational efficiency and develop new services? And you can see the real-time votes right here on the screen behind me. Working with vendors and cloud partners to develop new capabilities is still out in front. Also a desire to focus on selected key areas for AI projects. Well, if you have yet to vote, then you are running out of time. We're keeping the polls open until the end of today, and then we will analyze the results on TelecomTV. Right then, so don't lose a chance to vote. Please, please, please vote. Back to the questions now, though, and this one's a great one. How is the adoption of AI by telcos going to change the customer experience? How will users actually benefit? Right, Jason, perhaps we could come over to you for your comments first.
No, I think this is actually a super exciting question, actually. And I think I'll give sort of two answers. One of them is related to what is traditionally viewed as a less innovative space within telco networks, and that's the voice networks. And at Mobile World Congress 2 weeks ago, we demonstrated some great examples of how we can actually apply innovative technology so that a voice conversation, for example, somebody calling a hotel in a foreign country where they didn't speak the language, and you could offer an ability to actually help with the transcription. So using sort of language detection, using transcription and then speech synthesis to actually essentially intermediate that sort of conversation and help do the translation. You could take that a step further and start to actually apply LLMs to that same technology so that a customer could call and maybe ask the hotel for the weather, local restaurants, those sorts of things. But instead of the hotel having to answer, it's actually an AI-based LLM type solution. So that's one example of a completely new experience that we could give to sort of one of the more traditional sort of aspects of telcos networks. On the flip side, I think we're going to see, and actually we are seeing, an awful lot of interest in sort of really understanding the quality of experiences that are actually being delivered to telcos customers, especially with the telcos that are aggressively trying to actually move from number 3 to number 2 to number 1 in their markets. And so really understanding the quality of every single user's interaction with the network and starting to look for areas, patterns, trends where issues are occurring, and starting to actually move from sort of reactive to proactive and ultimately to predictive in terms of how the operational aspects of the network is delivering amazing experiences for gaming, for enterprise scenarios like Teams, those sorts of things. So it's really just this. It's almost like the question is, what area of the network won't be affected by AI, I think, as we move forward.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, isn't it, Jason? Beth, let's come across to you. How do you see the adoption of AI by telcos actually impacting the customer experience?
Well, I'm very excited that in an area that has been sort of a little pet project, if you will, for me, which is that the network really needs to impact the performance of the network and the performance of the applications are intimately tied together. And it's something that I think a lot of the telcos don't really think about because they're not really, they don't own the applications. It's the customer that owns the applications. But I think that's an area that AI can really be quite useful in improving the application's performance and in turn the customer experience. And Jason mentioned gaming. I know there's a lot of work around interactive experiences at concerts and other kinds of cool things where I think that this using AI to improve the performance of the applications and keep them in line, and make sure that the network is performing optimally and the application is performing optimally. I think that's where AI really can help in this area. So it's a pretty exciting area that I think there'll be a lot of improvement in the next couple of years.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing that, Beth, and I'm sure we're all excited about the new generation of AI wearables that we can all sign up for now as well, whenever they come into being. And maybe we're not all excited. Right, those who watched yesterday's live show will know that we had a lot of questions that were linked to data strategies, and we've got another one that's come in today. And the question is, how can you unify the operations, administration, and maintenance data models by using AI? So how can telcos achieve this aim? Jason, are you able to shed a bit of light on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really complex question. I think as we work with sort of operators, one of the challenges we see is lots of different network functions, lots of different telemetry being emitted, quite often different vendors providing different analysis solutions, siloed data sets, really limiting the ability for sort of a wide number of people sort of to access the data. You sort of mentioned that idea of sort of data democratization, and it just doesn't exist in sort of in the legacy sort of networks that we look at. I think the opportunity now with the cloud is it's more than the data lake. We saw that sort of 5 or 6 years ago as the buzzword. Basically, dump all the data in one location, magic will happen. It didn't, but I think now what we're sort of looking at is with Azure Operator Insights, what we sort of showed at Mobile World Congress last week was a new way of architecting the actual data sets to actually ensure that there's sort of lifecycle managers that are available in sort of much the same way as compute microservices, but now for data. So you can actually have data packages, data products, if you will, that actually can be deployed and lifecycle managed independently, but are designed to compose together, which I think is going to be key in this sort of new disaggregated sort of world that sort of 5G is bringing to bear. We want to actually establish patterns where we can actually have data from different ANFs being able to get moved into the same location, join across them, correlate, look for greater insights, start to apply more advanced sort of AI like multivariate sort of anomaly detection. So you can actually look at variables from different data sets and the patterns that basically exist there to actually find that new level of insights that's just not possible sort of current techniques. So I think a lot of attention needs to be paid in terms of, or needs to be actually focused on the data, the movement of these massive sets of data, the structure of it, in order to really realize the real benefits that we're all talking about here that AI can deliver.
Great, thanks very much, Jason. And Beth, it's a data set question. I've got to come over to you for comments on this one.
Yeah, data sets, the bugaboo. Yeah, there's Jason's sort of talking about the data sets, but obviously we need massive amounts of data, but I think there's sort of two problems. There's the processing of the data, which actually takes quite a bit of time, to apply those algorithms and pull out the interesting bits, if you will. And then there's the actionable piece of it, and I think we haven't quite solved the actionable piece, which is, hey, we have this huge data set. We've identified, anomalies, and we've identified patterns that look like they'll turn into anomalies or they'll turn into performance issues. And this is pattern recognition for potential failures, etc. And then how fast we can take that data set and turn it into action. It's not enough to just run these massive applications and data analysis that can take days, and then turn around and the anomaly went away already. So that's where I think we really need to go with it, to really marry those two up, to be able to detect those things in near real time and then act on them to reduce the improve the performance of the overall network. I will get there, but it's going to take a while.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Beth. And let's go next to Roman, then we'll come to Mark. But Roman.
Yeah, I think data unification will come before AI. So we need that before we put the algorithms to work. The question can be read in two different ways. So one possible interpretation of the question is, can we use AI to unify those data sets? And the answer is, well, I see initiatives in that sense, but very, in my opinion, very little chance of success because the complexity of the data model we're trying to create. So if the question is AI going to help us to unify data sets? I think we have to unify data sets, or at least data model, before putting AI to work for predictive maintenance and assurance purposes. If the question is, can we use any other algorithm to unify data sets? Theoretically, we can, but it's complex, particularly when it comes to the network.
Thanks very much, Roman. And Mark, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I think Roman, none of the panelists have really just articulated it very well. I can think of a particular use case where this becomes interesting for me within ConnectiviTree as we're building our global alliance. And not only have we got multiple data sets within our own operation environment, but as we try and integrate and automate across our alliance partners and then making sense of data, publishing data between us, and making sense of that data that is then for the benefit of customers or for our operations, for efficiencies, etc., becomes really quite a complicated activity. So I don't think it's here yet, but as I look forward in that strategy and how we're building that alliance, I'm looking for how techniques such as the utilization of AI, machine learning algorithms, etc., can be used to simplify or to do a lot of the grunt work that can speed up and those processes, that analysis, that detection, that delivering data that is then actionable or provides insights from the vast amount of data and different data sets that exist. So, I'm looking, and I will be looking for that sort of development from the community over the next couple of years. I'm hopeful, actually, that with the speed of innovation that happens within this field, that we can tackle some of those challenges, probably not from within the telco innovation development piece, but coming from outside into the telco environment, and maybe tackle some of those things that Roman identified as the challenges that are faced there. So, but I can think of a very clear example where we in the future will benefit from that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. I completely hope so too. I'm just looking down at the questions that we've been receiving in whilst we've all been talking, and it looks like there's a couple of questions that have come in that we've just covered in that last answer session. So hopefully we've covered most of that. But there is one that's come in that I'd just like to throw in now, and it refers to the panel that we had earlier in the program. The questioner asks, is it just me, or is the panel mixing AIOps with using AI to operate the network? Roman, I'm going to come across to you quickly here on this one. Do you think we still have a slight terminology problem or issue when we're talking about AI?
I think when it comes to AI, we have some terminology issue. So we're talking, for instance, when we're talking about MLOps, we're really talking about managing the life cycle of the model. Okay, and the model can be used for whatever problem that we want to apply it to. AIOps really, the term normally refers to the applying AI to IT operations. Okay, managing large infrastructure, for instance, cloud large infrastructures, and being able to apply, as we were talking, anomaly detection, forecasting, root cause analysis, log analysis, alarm correlation, all those things. They are part of the AIOps, but normally applied to the IT. Now what we're saying is we are applying those capabilities or those principles to operate in the network, and particularly for the assurance space. So it's just a matter of terminology. I think it can be confusing if you are not familiar with the field, but it's important to clarify, I guess. It's a good question.
Great, thanks very much, Roman. And we've had a follow-up in the past few seconds, actually, about the need for an ontology of telecom domain and standards. And this question, it's not so much a question, it just puts the point that maybe the industry tends to focus on narrow, low-level interfaces and avoids addressing the higher-level abstractions. So a point made there by one of our viewers. I do want to move on, though, with some of the other questions, and the scope of questions we've got is quite varied. So here's one that I expected we might get a question like this. Increased AI and automation adoption in the telecom sector means less workforce required to do the jobs. So how does it help human needs, and is it a threat to employees' livelihoods? So it's the human question there. Mark, are you able, from your perspective, to give any thoughts about the idea that AI will remove jobs?
I can give a perspective. I think the answer to that is it's different jobs. Certain tasks, that's the whole reason we do it. To improve lives or improve the working environment, to improve that. I don't think it's going to get rid of jobs, change definitions of roles, perhaps. I mean, ConnectiviTree is at the beginning of its cycle as a company, and in terms of our employment ambitions and our employment goals, it just means we're looking for people with skills that can utilize AI and not be replaced by. Now I'm pretty sure Jason, we'll have a comment or two on that with what Microsoft have been doing with Copilot. But I feel that it means that you potentially don't have to build out a vast group of people doing the same task. I think that is somewhere, and it can lead to efficiencies there. But I think it therefore means we can utilize people in areas where people are best utilized, are best used. So I think there is a huge benefit there. But it's part of our employment rollout plans to embed these skills, not to replace people, but to mean that we don't have to roll out vast armies of people for a specific mundane task, for example. But with automation, with AI capabilities, those sorts of things, we can optimize the workforce for other tasks.
Thanks, Mark. So we may be seeing a redistribution of talent. Well, Jason, Mark mentioned what you were doing there. So are you able to make a comment?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think one of the sort of incredible advances in the last couple of years is now enabling AI to be used by everybody in the organization. With Microsoft, we're using this sort of Copilot brand to sort of really sort of help developers, data engineers, and now with Azure Operator Insights, even operations teams, customer support teams, to start thinking about how to actually learn from sort of previous experiences and actually put knowledge at people's fingertips. So I think there's a new generation of tools that's enabling people now to actually perform their roles in a way that it probably would have been hard to do in the past. I think it's also worth looking at other industries. If you look at healthcare or education, sort of creative industries, there's lots of studies that are actually showing that technology and technologies like AI have actually increased the number of folks in the industries. They're able to actually deliver new tasks, new sort of functions that previously wouldn't be possible. So I think the opportunity is exactly what Mark was sort of saying there, was this, what are the new opportunities, new applications that operators can be thinking about to actually deliver new customer experiences, and that will actually lead to sort of new opportunities for employment. So.
Great. Thank you very much, Jason. And Beth, let's have some thoughts from you.
Sure. I want to build on what Jason and Mark were saying. I don't think that the people in the industry there'll be fewer. They'll just be doing different things. And I have two examples. One is when virtualization came in, network virtualization came in. I spent quite a bit of time with our management and operations management teams, training them on how to use virtualized networks, which is, it's just a different skill. They were fine with that, but of course they did have to be retrained. The hardware guys, there's just less emphasis on hardware. It's more on software. The other example I'll use, which was it's a software company that was based in India that I read about, that literally discovered that the chatbot, the AI-based chatbot, was actually better at answering their customers' tech support questions. And in fact, the customers actually preferred the chatbot answers to when they were interacting with their help desk. So I think a lot of tasks, very repetitive tasks, highly structured tasks, people when they're calling about software tend to ask the same questions over and over again. Just let the AI do it. I'd rather be doing something more interesting.
I don't comment on that at all. No. We this is the most interesting thing in the world, a DSP Leaders Summit on TelecomTV. Of course it is. But we are almost out of time. I do want to get one more question in, and it's a very different question, so I really want to get this one in. So let's quickly read this one out. It's is there a way to pursue the CSP, DSP transformation journey by using innovative tools like AI, such as understanding operational future states, assessing pain points, looking at business needs, etc.? And Roman, I'm going to come across to you for your expertise here. What do you think? Is there a role for AI here?
Well, I think that the transformation journey it's not going to be triggered by technology or tools. So tools is basically supporting the transformation. I think there are other aspects of the organization that has to be addressed. And I'm talking about ways of working. I'm talking about the right culture. I'm talking about the right team for AI, which normally is one of the factors that contributes to the success of the AI endeavors. So AI will play a role, but not central. At the end of the day, organizations are people. So if we really need to do this transformation journey, and we have to, it's going to be more related with cultural things and ways of working, in my opinion. So AI is just giving us the capability to do things, but to do it properly, we need to consider other angles as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Roman. And Mark, let's come across to you.
I agree there. I think it's part of the tool set, particularly as telcos, CSPs, that are on that journey to DSPs want to be able to automate or digitize a lot of their processes, but ultimately for the customer experience piece, that certainly it'll be a part of it. But I think it's a part, just in like all of the other subjects of these summits are within that we do here on we've done on these shows. It's one of the tool sets to do it. It's not the be all and end all of that. So you can combine it with the cloud native things that we've talked about in the past, the public cloud piece, even the green efficiency piece that we've spoken on before. They're part of that journey, and they're part of that ability to transform the capabilities that we deliver then to our customers, but not the ultimate piece of it. No, it's part of it. Could be a very important part, though.
Yeah, nice you said, Mark. These are all components. These are all interlinked components. We will come to Jason, but Beth, I'm coming to you first, and then we'll finish off with Jason. So, Beth.
So I think it's an important component. It is certainly not the end all be all. We do a lot of digital transformations and managed takeovers in our business. And, you're always going in and, I like to say you're finding out all about, we're taking over a bunch of other people's crap. And it's, these tools can really help make that often painful experience easier, because we can use them to identify, where to spend the effort to really improve things faster. So it's definitely part of the tool set that can really help our customers have a better experience in doing a transformation, we try to make them as easy as possible, but they're always painful.
I'm sure. Thank you, Beth. And Jason, final thoughts on this year's AI-Native Telco Summit. Go to you.
No, I mean, I think Roman, Mark, Beth all did a great job of sort of summarizing some of the obstacles to transformation, or maybe even some of the opportunities. I think the one thing I sort of point out is I think in order to really maximize the opportunity that AI can provide, it really does require people to think differently about how they work. And so therefore it's as much an organization and cultural transformation as it is technical. One of the observations I've had is that quite often people look at technology just to actually automate, for example, how they do existing processes, rather than rethinking how the process really should be sort of applied with the new technologies and capabilities available. And that's the really transformative aspect of where I think these technologies will help take us to a whole new level in the coming years. So.
Yeah, let's hope so. Well, we are out of time now. Thank you all so much indeed for your comments and for joining us for this live program. And that is a wrap for this year's AI-Native Telco Summit. Thank you to all those who submitted questions. We did try and cover as wide a range as possible in the limited time available. Now, if you're registered for the summit, then make sure you download your copy of our special report, Telecom's Take on AI. It's another humdinger from my colleague Ray Lemaitre. And if you missed any of our programs featuring all of these industry experts, then you can watch them on demand from our website. And we will be back next month for the Open Telco Infra Summit as our DSP leaders coverage continues. Until then, thanks for watching and goodbye.